Hello again. Now, while the Russian invasion continues in Ukraine, neighbouring countries are making moves to get better protection. Finland has announced that it will be seeking NATO membership, despite Russia calling this a threat to its security. Meanwhile, one person has died and 7 others have been injured in shelling by Ukraine forces. Let's get the latest updates now with our Russian correspondent from Moscow, Julia Chapman. Julia, good afternoon. Can we start first with this attack that has happened? Tell us about this latest. What's happening in this attack in Ukraine?
Well, this is the first time that a Russian civilian has been killed on Russian soil since the Kremlin launched what it calls and what it insists we call its special military operation in Ukraine. There have been a few sporadic instances of Ukrainian shelling hitting Russian territory across the border, but this is the first time that anyone has died in one of those attacks. There have been a number of injuries as well, 7 people injured, one of them in a serious condition in hospital, but also the residents of the village that was targeted have been evacuated, and apparently the situation is now under control. There is a state of heightened terror alert in the Belgorod region where this attack took place, as well as in a number of other Russian regions that border Ukraine. But as I say, they have been only sporadic attacks on the Russian side of the border since February 24th. Nevertheless, there still remains a very large area of Russia's airspace that is still closed and has been now for nearly 3 months because of the fighting going on the other side of the border.
Yeah, well, that war is still going on. Wonder how long it's going to take. Now we are here that Finland is announcing that it's seeking membership of NATO. How has Moscow, how has Vladimir Putin's government responded or reacted?
Not very well, as you might expect. This is a very significant moment because, of course, for a long time, Finland has been neutral. It has been non-aligned since the Second World War, where it fought against the Soviet Union. Now it says it is taking this step directly in response to Russian aggression. Here in Moscow, we've been hearing from the Kremlin today saying that this move, this decision by Finland to start the accession process to join NATO, poses a direct threat to Russia itself, insisting that the security system in Northern Europe is now at risk. We also heard the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs say that in response there will be some sort of military technical response from Russia without specifying what exactly that could entail. The Kremlin says that the response will depend on the proximity of NATO military infrastructure to Russia's border, but of course Finland has a pretty long border with Russia, 1,300 kilometers, 800 miles. Most of NATO countries do not in fact border Russia, so this move will directly result in a much longer border between Russia and NATO, more than doubling the current one between the military bloc and Russia. So this hasn't gone down well here in Moscow at all. Russia has been pushing for NATO rather than expanding, but to roll back, and now as a direct result of its actions, it's seeing exactly the opposite happen.
Now, I understand in Russia itself there's a couple of developments that are interesting. Recently, we got tech workers fleeing Russia. That's what we are hearing. But also we're seeing moves by the likes of McDonald's.
That's right. Of course, there have been a number of economic repercussions since Russia launched this operation in Ukraine. Huge numbers of sanctions issued by Western countries. But on top of that, a number of Western and foreign companies have decided to leave Russia of their own accord, saying that it is simply no longer tenable to work in this economy, in this atmosphere where everything has become much more difficult. Other companies taking a more moral stance, saying that they are leaving Russia for ethical reasons. McDonald's was one of the most symbolic departures from Russia. It was the first fast food chain to launch here during the Soviet Union, marking up the opening up of the Soviet Union. Now it is leaving, but there are still some McDonald's restaurants here still open. We understand from RIA Novosti today that a survey has been conducted, and actually 1 in 6 McDonald's restaurants still remains open because of the franchising system. They are not directly owned by McDonald's. The other implication has been a huge departure of skilled workers from Russia, primarily in the tech sector. There have been tens of thousands of tech workers leaving Russia since the start of this year. We now learn from a jobs portal today that some 14%, there has been a 14% jump in vacancies in the tech sector in April. So certainly there have been a number of unintended consequences since Russia launched its so-called special military operation, and the economic consequences are still being felt as time goes on.
Julia, now finally in the last minute that we have with you in our crossing here to Moscow. Yesterday I was speaking to your colleague Oli Barat, who's in Riga in Latvia, and the unease in the area, Latvia, about this Russian invasion of Ukraine since it happened. What about Moldova? What are people saying about Moldova?
That's right. Moldova is also an area that people are watching incredibly closely because recently a Russian commander suggested that Russian forces in Ukraine are working to create a sort of land corridor towards Transnistria, which is a breakaway region of Moldova, where he said that the Russian-speaking population was being oppressed. A similar justification was given by the Kremlin for launching this operation in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbass region, which is also primarily Russian speaking. Moldova, of course, remains an independent country since the fall of the Soviet Union, but has very close links to Romania, both ethnically and politically. And there has been a suggestion here in Russia that there are certain elites in Moldova looking to join Romania full-time. Certainly people are watching very closely, fearing that Moldova could become the next target of Russian aggression as it looks towards creating this land corridor further south in Ukraine that could help it reach Moldova's borders.
Thank you very much. Julia Chapman, our correspondent in Moscow. These are with some of the developments today, post the invasion of Ukraine by Russia.